We're on the hunt to find the next Jordan Mason. We're going to continue to churn these waivers and try our best to identify that next RB1. Now, first off, we need to make some space, right? We need to cut some of these guys. A few running backs that I'm fine letting go of. One, Alexander Mattison. Yes, I know I told you to pick him up last week. Well, last week, it looked like he was going to be really the only other player in this backfield alongside Zamir White. Now that doesn't necessarily look to be the case. If you're looking at the split that you had with these Raiders running backs, you actually had Amir Abdullah all of a sudden mixing in. Alexander Mattison only had 14 snaps in comparison to Zamir White at 40. So I think Mattison now at this point isn't just in a two-man backfield, he's in a three. And even if Zamir were to go down, he probably splits with Abdullah. Now, Isaac Gurindo is a running back that I know some people, including myself, picked up as soon as you had the McCaffrey news. And then once you see this split between Mason and Gurindo, I think it's okay to just go ahead and let him go. Like if you're going to go ahead and look at what Jordan Mason did this week, Jordan Mason had 20 carries compared to Isaac at 1. Jordan had 57 snaps in comparison to Isaac with 1. He has no role whatsoever. Even if Jordan Mason were to go down, you don't even know if Isaac Gurindo would be playable in fantasy. If he had some juice, you'd imagine that they would at least get him in a little bit to split with Jordan Mason. Next guy you should be fine moving on from would be Emmanuel Wilson. If you were rostering him just in case Josh Jacobs went down, well, there's no reason to because Marshawn Lloyd is back. Marshawn Lloyd did play in this game. Now, I'm not going to be screaming, oh, pick up Lloyd, pick up Lloyd. I mean, really, they are both just part-time backs. Josh Jacobs is the 3-down bell cow. But if Jacobs were to go down, my money would be on Marshawn Lloyd. But I think ultimately Wilson and Lloyd would probably end up splitting. Our next guy that you can easily move on from will be Dameon Pierce. With Dameon Pierce, he was inactive going into the Texans game tonight. Obviously, we're going to monitor the Joe Mixon injury, but it appears that actually Cam Akers is the guy, not Dameon Pierce. But we'll talk about Akers later in this video. And then last but not least, a player that I drafted a ton of. Yes, you just go ahead and let go of Roschon Johnson. He was a cut last week for us. He's a clear cut now. Travis Homer's still playing over Roschon. So yeah, there's just no reason to hold him on the team, even if I thought he had upside coming into the season. But going over to these waiver wire pickups, we are going to go from least appealing to most appealing. Starting off with D'Onta Foreman, looking at this Browns offense, obviously it is one of the worst offenses in the NFL, but Foreman comes in and he actually gets the quote unquote start over Jerome Ford. Now, of course, Ford is the more dynamic back. I think Ford is the guy that's actually going to catch the ball as well. So if I had to pick my bet between these two RBs going into the future, I would still rather have Jerome Ford over D'Onta Foreman. But if you look at this, Foreman played 27 snaps compared to Ford at 32. Foreman had 14 carries in comparison to Jerome Ford at 7. Foreman had a target out of the backfield with Ford only at 2. So the reality of the situation is now you're in a spot where Foreman and Ford are splitting this backfield. Neither running back's that interesting unless you were to get an injury to the other player. But if all of a sudden you were to get an injury to Jerome Ford, D'Onta Foreman would be the last man standing. D'Onta Foreman would just be somebody that you have to start as a player that we've seen be productive in fantasy in the past. And I think Ford's kind of in that similar boat here. I hope that you sold for high whenever we put him on the sell high video week 1. Now going over to the Patriots, Antonio Gibson had a very strong day. Antonio Gibson actually leads New England in rushing with 96 rushing yards with 11 carries. Antonio Gibson, obviously, we know that he is going to be a capable receiver out of the backfield as well. He had 1 reception for 7 receiving yards. Now, definitely, I'm not going to be overrating this Antonio Gibson performance. I do want to point out that Antonio Gibson only had 16 snaps in this game. So it's hilarious that Antonio Gibson had 16 snaps, and with those 16 snaps, he touched the ball 12 times. He was very efficient when given the opportunity. Now, of course, it does look like Ramondre Stevenson is that 3-down running back. Ramondre Stevenson is him. But with Gibson, if you were to get that injury to Ramondre, he does look like he's going to step into just a full-blown 3-down workload, while at the same time, he will have that receiving usage in this backfield. Now, going over to Cam Akers. Cam Akers is the 3rd worst pickup this week, but if we get different news regarding this Joe Mixon injury, I think Cam Akers could actually be near the top. Now, obviously, Joe Mixon suffered what appears to be a slight ankle injury. Now, immediately after it occurred, he was running on the sideline. He got back in the game, right? So I am personally operating under the assumption that Joe Mixon will not be missing any time. Now, with that being said, going into this game, Dameon Pierce was inactive. Cam Akers was active. It does appear that Akers is going to be the backup running back for the Houston Texans going into the future. You kind of saw that play with Cam Akers in the preseason as well, where he looked like he was the running back that had more juice between the two. Now, going over to our next guy, Braylon Allen looked like he had a lot of juice this week. I mean, going over to the Jets depth chart, coming into the season, I wasn't the biggest Braylon Allen guy because I was sitting here going, okay, maybe he's the running back too. But even if you were to have Breece Hall go down, you have Isaiah Davis. They go out there and they draft a running back in the 2023 class. They take 2 running backs in the 2024 class. So it appeared that it was maybe a little bit of a crowded depth chart behind Breece Hall. But yeah, no, I don't think you'd say that anymore. Braylon Allen, by far and away the best prospect out of any other running back here, not named Breece Hall. And now Allen actually getting on the field and showing what he can do. He has a rushing touchdown with 7 carries. At the same time, he has a receiving touchdown off of 4 targets. Am I saying that he's going to be viable in games where Breece Hall is healthy? Of course not. There's a 0% chance that happens. However, with Braylon Allen, if you were to get that Breece Hall injury, all of a sudden he goes from a player that we previously would have projected to be in a committee with Davis to now somebody that looks like he would have that 3-down workload. He would be a capable receiver. And this is similar to the story that we had with Jordan Mason, right? When we included Jordan Mason on that waiver wire video before the season started, the reason I put him there was not because we knew that McCaffrey was going to be missing time. At the time we were saying to pick up Jordan Mason, it was pretty much consensus and everybody assumed that Christian McCaffrey was going to be healthy. He was going to be playing week 1. Nobody was really concerned about the calf strain. But the reason we picked up Jordan Mason is we looked at the depth chart in San Francisco. We said, oh, Elijah Mitchell just hit the IR. So with Elijah Mitchell hitting the IR, if CMC were to go down, all of a sudden, this probably isn't a running back by committee. Probably Jordan Mason gets everything in this backfield. And it's kind of a similar situation with Braylon Allen here. Now, going over to the Flock League, I actually made a waiver wire move on Sunday, which I'm very excited about this. The player actually plays tonight. And of course, real quick in the game tonight, if you want to have some fun here, I took Bijan to have a touchdown, Devonta Smith to have a touchdown, and Jalen Hurts higher than 231.5 passing yards. And there we put $15 down to win $136.80. So yeah, if you wanted to tell me on that, or if you want to check out any of those pick'ems over on Underdog Fantasy, you can find that link in the description, in the comment section. If you use code FLOCK, you're going to get a free Jalen Hurts special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard. With code FLOCK, you will also get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000, and you'll get a free team review through flockfantasy.com as well, where we can go through and break down your team in a live stream. Now, going over to the running back in the game, we have Tyler Algier. Now, Sal dropped Tyler Algier, and I was very quick to pick him up off the waiver wire in the Flock League. And if I'm looking at Algier, it's very clear the reason we want him. Not because he's going to have any standalone value in games where Bijan Robinson's healthy. In games where Bijan Robinson's healthy, obviously, Tyler Algier's a running back that's not close to hitting your starting lineup. You would never consider it. But we have seen the final month before Bijan Robinson was drafted this Atlanta Falcons backfield, Tyler Algier go out there and pretty much every single game for a straight month have over 100 total yards, and in some of those contests have over 150 total yards per. This is a team that no longer has Cordell Patterson, no longer has Arthur Smith. Both of them are in Pittsburgh. So if you were to have an injury to Bijan Robinson, I would rank Tyler Algier almost immediately as that top 10 back. So I was completely fine throwing some fab dollars on him, going and picking him up as soon as I could. And then Bucky Irving is a running back that we actually had on the waiver wire video last week. Bucky Irving last week led the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in rushing. He looked more efficient than Rachaad White from a per touch perspective. Obviously, Rachaad White was a very inefficient running back back in 2023, but it looks like that may end up being the case yet again this season. In week 2, Bucky Irving yet again is a more efficient back than Rachaad White. Rachaad White falls flat on his face. The receiving volume isn't even there to save him from a fantasy football perspective. Kind of thank God. It's what's probably going to win me my week in the Flock League. Now with Irving, I want to definitely be clear here. I don't think he has the same upside as Tyler Algier, as Braylon Allen, if their starters were to go down in front of them. Like if Breece Hall goes down, I think Braylon Allen could potentially be a top 12 running back in fantasy. If Bijan Robinson goes down, I think Tyler Algier very easily could be a top 12 running back in fantasy. If Bucky Irving took over the starting job from Rachaad White, I don't see that in his range of outcomes. Primarily because, one, Bucky Irving wasn't a special prospect. Two, Bucky Irving, very small as well, was more so like a receiving specialist in college. But with Bucky Irving, the reason I am ranking him as a better option than Braylon Allen and Tyler Algier off waivers is I think Irving has a greater than 0% chance to take this job from Rachaad White as the season goes on. Whereas when we're looking at Braylon Allen, when we're looking at Tyler Algier, those guys have a 0% probability to take the job outside of an injury. But there are two running backs that are now stepping into opportunities because of injuries in their offense. Carson Steele will be stepping in for a Mr. Isaiah Pacheco. Now, the reason Carson Steele isn't number one here is because with Steele, he more likely than not is not going to be the receiving back. I am not going to rank Carson Steele as a running back one in a week that Isaiah Pacheco misses. Instead, I think Carson Steele will most likely be a low-end RB2, high-end RB3 flex play consideration until we see otherwise. But the reason for this is how I'm going to be projecting this Chiefs backfield in the event that Isaiah Pacheco misses time is Carson Steele is going to be the first and second down grinder, and Samaje Perine will be the running back that they bring in on third downs and inside the 2-minute drill. So with that in mind, and plus the ability for this team to just pivot and go, okay, no Pacheco, we can skew extremely pass happy. We don't need to be nearly as balanced as we were in 2023 as we were in the first 2 weeks in 2024. I think you could see Mahomes get back up to 40 plus pass attempts a game with no Pacheco. And like I said, I do think that Perine potentially has this third down role, potentially has the 2-minute drill offense as well. So what I probably look to do here is, if you're playing in a deep PPR format, you can consider picking up Samaje Perine. But in the case of Carson Steele, he should be the running back that projects to see more volume, and he will be the safer play if you needed to fill in. And then our best running back off the waiver wire, clearly this is only going to be for shallow leagues. Anybody that's playing in a league with respectable depth, he's not available. But if you're in like an 18 league and Zach Charbonnet's out there, pick up Charbonnet. We got the report coming out of Seattle that they're going to be playing it safe with Kenneth Walker, where it sounds like Kenneth Walker may be missing multiple weeks. And if that is the case, then Zach Charbonnet is penciled in to be a top 12 running back for weeks to come. We ranked him as a top 12 guy right away coming into this week. The reason being is if you looked at Charbonnet, he's a running back that projected to have everything as a receiver in his offense, everything at the goal line. And what we ended up finding out is that not only that, he'll just play every damn snap for the Seattle Seahawks with no Kenneth Walker. So I think Charbonnet is by far and away the best running back pickup. But obviously, I'll update you in live streams throughout the week as we get additional news regarding these injuries with players like Isaiah Pacheco and Kenneth Walker and potentially Joe Mixon as well. But I think that's all I have for you with this video. If you haven't done so already, hit that like, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And if you wanted to check out any of those pick'ems for the Monday night game, you can find that link to Underdog Fantasy in the description, in the comment section. If you use code FLOCK, you're going to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, with code FLOCK, you will get a free team review over there on flockfantasy.com that we will show off in one of our live streams. Just make sure that you use this same email address when you set up your flockfantasy.com account that you set up on your Underdog account and made that $10 deposit on Underdog. But I think that's all I got for you. Really do appreciate you and really hope I can hang out with you after the game tonight.